Uh, I came practically right out of the womb playing drums. My dad was a drummer, uh, a prominent drummer of the late 40s and 50s and into the 60s. He played with Woody Herman and Benny Goodman, and then in the 60s, went on to do some very nice studio work, and also when they had staff orchestras, NBC, CBS, he was a member of those as well. So by the time I came along, uh, he had stopped touring, so he was home, and I was surrounded by jazz and drums pretty much right away. And you couldn't tear me away from the drums. It was pretty obvious. Like before I could walk, I was just drum crazy. My training was a mixture of both formal and informal. It was my father was a very learned musician, so he would teach me how to read, technique, all the great fundamentals, but it was also uh, a home of what I used to like call jazz osmosis, because it would just be on all the time. So the music would be playing. I just grew up, listening to great drummers my whole life. So our house was full of, Buddy Rich and Art Blakey and Tony Williams and Elvin Jones and Philly Joe and Papa Joe and down, I mean, every which way. There was always great jazz in the house. And I took it for granted. I didn't know. You're a kid. You're growing up. You're just like, well, everybody listens to jazz. Everybody has that. And then only when you get older and start to realize that almost no one has that. A very low percentage of American households have that kind of listening environment going on in their home of high quality music. Oh yeah. My sisters gave me the rock. So my older sisters were, constantly just playing, Beatles, Stones, Zeppelin, Jimi Hendrix was just in our house. That was the other half. So my dad was giving me the jazz, and my sisters were, blasting, Frampton Live, So it was all this, it was all this different stuff that was going on, and I just thought it was music. I grew up not really thinking, in terms of, truly like the Duke Ellington model of music, where there's only two kinds of music, good and bad. That's just how I thought of music and still do. I really don't get too locked into labels, which, it's in the 21st century, labels are even more superfluous than they were, just a couple of decades ago. Everybody's just crossing borders and genres, and it's just one big old gumbo of music now. My first, I think my first paid gig, like a lot of musicians, was an accident. A guy got sick, the regular guy, and I think I was 15, and it was a wedding, and you know, they were just they were obviously desperate. Like, they were like, yeah. So I was just totally like, not prepared to, do anything probably by that point. But, they knew I could play and keep good time and stuff. So, they probably just like, just go do this, do this for 3 minutes, do this for 3 minutes, and then we got through the gig. And I think it paid like, $50 or something. But I thought it was might as well for me. It might as well have been 5 million. So it was. It's funny how I think a lot of musicians have that kind of thing happen. I remember Steve Jordan was telling a great story about how he broke into the higher levels of the New York studio scene because there was a snowstorm and Gad couldn't make it to the session. And it tells a great story, absolutely fantastic story. And Steve tells great stories anyway, so I thought that was amazing. And it seems to be a very common tale amongst professional musicians where it was an accident where you actually, when you got your shot in, and that wedding was not my shot. That just happens to be the first time somebody gave me some cash, which hardly made me a professional. I don't think I really became a professional player until I was, 30 years old. Like really knew what I was doing. But I think that's a common thing amongst musicians: the accident, and then you had to go cover somebody. Uh, when I went to William Patterson University for 1 year, and I met Rufus Reed, the great bass player, and he to this day I don't think he really understands how much he did for me and meant, to me. And I've told him to his face several times, and he just kind of, he's so humble. But, he had a huge influence more than anything else. Again, some of the best influences you have are just the way people conduct themselves, just how professional they are. And I remember he just was such a giant to me musically, and he beat me up with kindness. It was very gentle, yet firm. You have a long way to go, kind of thing. And I think, I don't know one great player that hasn't had those kinds of mentors where they say, okay, fine, but you're not even close, really, and with a loving kind of way, but straight to the point. And Rufus was one of the probably at that point, that was around 18 years old, and he was amazing, where he had a very impressionable period of my time, and he came in and just really kind of helped me set my, he made me go like this musically so I could see more, and he also helped me bring my game up quite a bit. And then I had great, drum teachers. I had a great influence also, again, who really just more by example than actual drumming. A guy named Dennis DeLucia, who was a rudimental guy, was just a great man and great influence, just the way he conducted himself and his work ethic. There was a band director, again, not a guy who showed me any kind of really drumming or anything, but just by his work ethic. His name was Daryl Bott. He had a passion that was frightening for education, and I really do try to split my career into education and performance. And his passion for education was something that was alarming and inspiring, if that makes any sense at all, because his passion was so feverish, it would actually make some people he's like that kind of band director who would blow everything up around him to get what he wanted, because the kids needed it. And I found that kind of passion inspiring. This is Tommy Igoe, and for more videos, go to JazzTimes.com. See you soon.